The following program is for informational and educational purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Fraudsters Radio was created to expose the many scams and frauds that have so infected society today. Scammers, fraudsters, and rip-off artists abound, whether it's scamming homeowners with bogus foreclosure relief services, dating fraud, incompetent lawyers, or consumer rip-offs. It's high time the public has a voice. If you work in a profession that deals with fraud, or if you believe you were or are a victim of fraud, you now have a radio-listening public that wants to hear from you. Please feel free to message us through our Fraudsters Radio Facebook page, and we may have you on the show as a guest. If you'd like to call in for today's show, the number is 646-668-8512.
And welcome to Fraudsters Radio. I am Lori Z., nationally syndicated radio host and consumer advocate, along with my co-host, Storm Bradford, owner of Mortgage Fraud Examiners. Storm, you got any good scam stories to share today at the start of the show? Because today, I believe, is our one-year anniversary of being on the air for Fraudsters Radio.
Well, that's good to know. So we've been doing this for a year. It feels like an eternity now.
Well,
now every day there's obviously another scam someplace, but just over the past week, a bunch more clients, or not clients, but homeowners came and called us at Mortgage Fraud Examiners complaining about this company, Certified Forensic Loan Auditors in California that ripped them off. It's really sad what these guys are doing,
and they're probably still getting away with it. See, I get the phone calls for things like medical braces, and I keep saying, Storm, I'm not going to pick up the phone if I don't recognize the number, but I'm going to tell you that probably it's got to be up to 70% of the phone calls I get are scammers. And I'm afraid to not pick up the phone. What if it's a family member? What if it's an emergency? What if it's a friend? What if it's a doctor? So I pick up the calls and I tentatively answer the phone. But I'm getting to that point where I actually am afraid. And then this morning someone called me, actually on my other line. I have a business introduction, I say, and then this person stops talking, and I go, "Can I help you?" And dead silence. So I just hang up. But the one on medical braces, I just said to the girl, I'm on the do not call list. You're not scrubbing your list, and then click. They all do the same thing. But if I figure out that I got at least 10 calls a week, it's such a waste of time.
Yeah, I have an app on my phone that basically identifies scam calls.
Now, is that the Nomo Robo?
I don't know which one it is. I'd have to look at it again, but it's quite good because what I do is that it will say scam or fraud, and then it'll ring. I just won't answer it, and then I'll block it from there.
All right. Well, you'll have to share that app because I have one called Blacklist, but it doesn't tell me whether it's a scam or not. I have to pick up the call, and then if it's a scammer, when I hang up, I have to go into my Blacklist, find that call on my call log, which is easy, and then put it in. The problem is I now have hundreds of phone numbers because they're all spoof numbers, and these people call every single day, like we always say, about different things. And I wonder, this young woman who called me about medical braces and sounded so sincere, I wonder, do they all actually know that they're scamming? And so when I Googled medical brace scam, it comes up. It was apparently more popular a couple of years ago in 2017. So I don't know. Maybe I'm in a rural area and things just kind of travel slower. I don't know. But I'll tell you another interesting thing. I actually got a letter from the IRS, which I've never gotten before. And you know how people get those phone calls from the IRS. So I sent it to my accountant to verify if it was real. I checked the phone number to see if the number they listed is real. It was. And so it said that they were checking about my correspondence to them on December 31st of 2018. Now, I haven't corresponded with them. And the funny part is the next day I get another letter with documents in it, with what looks like payment vouchers, and then it has another letter that says, oh, we're letting you know that, we're recording these two payments from a year ago. But the original letter stated something like, you contacted us back in December of 2016, even though, now it's 2019. So after a nice long wait on the phone, I get a fellow who's I probably confused him, but he went through the whole thing and he goes, well, I'm going to tell you, there's no problem on your account. I don't know why you got the letters other than to say they were paid. And I'm sitting here going, that was probably the only bizarre phone call I've had where someone sent me something where it concerned me that, somebody else was acting on my behalf. That's basically what it said. And the only person who could act on my behalf is either me or my accountant. So I just thought it was odd to get a letter like that where it says, don't worry, on the second letter the next day, you're paid in full. Like, is that bizarre?
Well, that's one thing that our listeners should be aware of, is that the IRS doesn't call anybody.
Right.
They either send correspondence or show up at your door. If they show up with you, you don't want them showing up at your door. But no, they never call.
Right, but the letters were actually real. So anyway, I'm sure my accountant will be happy to know that it wasn't anything serious. But what concerned me was in the first letter it said, you or an authorized representative, contacted us on December 31st, 2018, and I didn't contact them. No one else contacted them. The guy just looked through all the documentation and goes, well, it looks like we made a mistake. I went, okay, So I kept all my notes and everything, and then I just put it in my computer. This way, if they call me back at some point, I could just reprint everything with my notes, and I know what happened.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Now, we have contacted the IRS about having them come on the show, so I don't know if that's coincidental or.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not in this particular case. I don't think so.
Well, at least you don't owe any money. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I figured if they say I owe no money and everything is okay, then we just leave it alone with the IRS. But just like I said, it was just a bunch of strange letters.
Well, it's funny how people react to the IRS. Years ago, this has been probably 20, 25 years ago, the IRS sent out a bunch of letters to people that said you owe us money, and I forgot how many it was. It was it was in the thousands, tens of thousands, and how the people reacted to it. It said that 98% of the people that got those letters, turned their pockets inside out to pay the IRS. Turned out afterwards it was a computer glitch and none of them owed money.
Well, I guess that they make mistakes. I don't know. I was just glad for me. It was.
Yeah, it was just a computer glitch, but it just goes to show how people react to the IRS. 98% of them cut them a check.
Wow. Yeah, mine wasn't asking for money, but I said to the guy, I'm a victim of identity theft, and I've had very weird things happening, and I want to make sure that somebody else hasn't tried to take over power of attorney for my account. And he said no. Now, I'm glad it turned out to be nothing, and I want to read you a text I got today, because here's another bizarre one. I don't know this person. I'm looking at the phone number. It's a text I got at 10 o'clock. Hey, Lori, it's Christy. I wanted to see how you've been lately. I reckoned this could potentially be something you could use during these flaky times, and then it gives a website. Do you think I'm going to click on the website? No. Do you think I have any idea who Christy is at this phone number that's not programmed in? No. But, it's interesting. I guess they figure that it's easy to find people's numbers, connect it to their phone number, either name and their phone number. Christy is a common name. And then they put in something that almost makes you want to open it. But I go, nope, think it's a deletion. And I don't know if you get that. Maybe it's just me, but I'm telling you, I seem to be on the email or the text list or the phone call list for the nuts.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know you're laughing. Go ahead.
No, I'm just, it just strikes me funny that the way that you put it, but I mean, it's an everyday occurrence. Yeah.
I don't know. Does everybody else get these kind of things every day to the point where they want to scream, or is it just a certain percentage of us? I don't know. I question why no one, Federal Trade Commission, are you listening? No one is doing anything, or even the Federal Communications Commission. Nobody is doing anything. What laws are there? Who is going to stop the spoofers from using the fake phone numbers they do on these phone calls? And from what I hear, the TCPA is probably going to kind of go bye-bye at some point in the next year or two, which makes it even worse for, those of us who don't want these types of calls. And it's almost like none of these callers know what the do not call list is, or maybe they do, because obviously once you say that, they've been instructed to hang up. But don't the people who work there question what they're doing for a living?
Well, a lot of them are from overseas, so that's part of the problem.
That may be true, but I get a lot of American ones, Storm. I get a lot of people who speak perfect English, are American, and are making these phone calls, and as soon as I make those statements, they hang up the call.
Yeah, but how do you know they're from America?
Well, I don't know, but they certainly sound American to me on the phone.
Yeah.
It's not like when I get calls, you can tell the difference when someone's in a call center and you hear all those voices in the background. But when someone is just calling you from, when I Google it, reverse Google it, and it comes up as a cell phone, that person is using a cell phone either, on their own working for a company. I don't know. Or maybe they're just doing it on their own to see if they could scam people out of money. Because I hadn't heard of the medical braces one before. That one was new to me, although apparently it's an old one. But, people are doing so many scams. I get scams all the time for health insurance plans. A lot of them, the health insurance plan. We're calling you about a health insurance plan. Oh, you're on the list for a health insurance plan. I'm like, I'm on no list. Or, hey, you filled out one of those little slips that you put in the fishbowl for a free prize. I go, I don't fill any of those out. So why don't you tell me the truth? Why are you scamming me? Now at the end of the call, I go, why are you scamming people? And they hang up.
Yeah, well, there is things that people can do. There's this FTC Act that nails people for misrepresentations or deceptive omissions, and then you've got which again it prohibits unfair deceptive acts in affecting commerce. So this is people selling stuff and doing stuff. Then you have the telemarketing sales rule, and that's with the Federal Trade Commission as well, and they go after people. And a telemarketer is any person who, in connection with telemarketing, initiates or receives telephone calls to or from a customer and talking about different types of services that they provide and things like that. So there are things out there, but the normal person on the street doesn't know it and doesn't know how to, to help themselves. So again, it's like anything else. You got to do the research.
Well, you do, but the problem is that they're spoofing the phone numbers. I told you if they call from the first 6 numbers of my phone number, I know it's a spoof. The chances 99% it's not anyone that I know. But the problem is the Federal Trade Commission, what do? Unless they have thousands of people complaining about a specific thing in a short amount of time, which is what they do with debt collection agencies, by the way, nothing happens. Legislation doesn't happen for years and years. It's now gotten to the point, Storm, I don't want to pick up my phone anymore. And what happens if I have a prospective customer calling and, I may let them leave a message and then immediately call them back, but I've actually contemplated leaving a message on my phone that says, hey, the reason I'm not picking up your call today is because you're not on my list. So if you're a real person, go ahead and leave me your name and number. But if you're a spam caller, delete me off your list. Maybe I should come up with like a little rhyme or a poem or a song that says that. That would be kind of funny, but I don't know if it would work. So, that's my thought, my 2 cents.
What you tell them is not to take you off the list, is tell them that you're going to block them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know, but they're just going to call me from another number, so.
I don't know how that works. I've got to, we got to research a little bit and see how they're getting these phone numbers because,
they have equipment. They can buy, I've been told they can buy special equipment in the United States that lets them do that. But anyway, let's do this. It's a quarter after. Let's go to a commercial break, and when we come back, you can introduce our guest, all right? So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you received a notice of foreclosure on your property? Do you suspect that you're involved in an unfair or fraudulent loan agreement? Are you looking for a way to save your home? Would you like to cut through all the misinformation and find out what really works? Would you like to learn strategies that the so-called gurus aren't aware of? If you answered yes to any of those questions, a professional team at Mortgage Fraud Examiners can assist you and your attorney with all of these things and more. Contract breaches, errors, statutory regulatory violations, fraudulent appraisals, and other fraudulent conduct cause most mortgages to be legally problematic. In fact, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation found that nearly 2,000 financial institutions they assessed received citations for significant compliance violations. They also examined appraisals and found out that of the 259 appraisals reviewed for accuracy, only 7 fully complied with professional standards. Call us at 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200. Mortgage Fraud Examiners, 844-920-7200.
Okay, we're back on Fraudsters Radio on 24/7 AM FM radio. And we have a special guest today, Robert Aromando. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I butcher names for a living. From the case. Bob, you with us?
I'm with you, yes. Thank you for having me.
Did I butcher it again?
Well, it's Aromando. You got closer the second time, yes.
Okay, Aromando. I'm going to keep trying until I get it right.
All righty.
So, what are we talking today, Laurie? What are we talking about?
Well, we're going to talk about bank fraud, but Bob's been hanging on the line listening to our previous conversation, and I'm just curious, Bob. Do you know anything about the spam calls and the robocalls? Do you just happen to know how they get the equipment to do it, or if there's any legislation that's going to stop it? Because I'm betting that you get the same calls that we all get.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that because I wrote a little note here to inject just my my thoughts on this and my experience is that the spoofers are out there. They're going to be out there, no matter what. But I'll tell you what has been the driving factor in getting these calls from these numbers that don't exist is the voice over internet provider phone systems. We use that system at our facility. We have a VoIP system. You probably have a VoIP system. And when you've got one of those systems, you can create as many different numbers as you want to pay for. And they'll look, you can put any exchange on them. You can, it's crazy, but it's the computerized voice over internet systems that do this.
So how are they doing it? They're doing it in the computer, like through my cable service. I have one of those phones. It looks like it plugs into the computer. So I'm assuming that's VoIP.
Right.
Do they have a program that allows them to just keep reprogramming that same phone with a different number every day and then do the same thing over and over again? Is that how they're doing it?
Well, pretty much. I mean, if you're going to have a VoIP system, and I forget the supplier that we use, I'm not going to mention it anyway, but there's a boatload of suppliers out there that offer VoIP systems. And as long as you've got an internet connection, and then you set up your system in the cloud, you can just, like I said, it only costs, I think, $6 for a telephone number, and you can buy a bank of numbers and use them, rotate them, do whatever you like with them, and that's how this stuff happens.
Yeah, it's a shame it's just not regulated because it's to the point where, like I said, I don't want to answer my phone anymore. I'm afraid to answer the phone. It's and I'm 99% of the time I'm right. I shouldn't have answered that call because it's someone robocalling or
Right.
you know what, I get so enraged now when it's a robocall. See, with a real person I can actually say what I think. With a robocall, I sometimes you can hit 9 and it will delete. But you know what I do? I hit all the buttons. Like I just go panic. I just freak out on all the touch dial, and I go da all the numbers, and then usually it'll disconnect it, and then I put it into my app. But when I put hundreds of numbers into my blacklist, they're not calling me back from those numbers. That's the thing.
No,
they're just going on and on with more numbers.
Exactly. So you could block those all you want. They'll just call back on others. Now, have you ever gotten spoof calls where nobody's on the other end?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Okay, so you know what they're doing. They're doing those spoof calls to determine what time of the day is the best time to send robocalls to you.
Huh. That's interesting. My other half gets those calls, and he'll actually say hello twice, and I tell him, nope, only say hello once, and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a frustration factor of it's a waste of time. So if it takes me, if I get 10 calls a week and each one takes 3 minutes, that's a half hour of waste of time answering the phone on things I could have done otherwise, rather than just stress myself out. But thank you for the information.
Yeah, you have to think of this scamming as it's the law of large numbers, right? I mean, if they put out 1 million robocalls, even if they get 3-4% on those that they're able to scam, they're ahead of the game.
Yeah, I'd like to scam. I'd like to robocall the robocallers and come up with something. Come up with some message, because when you try to dial back that number, you just don't get the same. You get a real person because they've spoofed the number, and that's the part that people don't realize. But anyway, I guess we could kind of jump into talking about bank fraud. And I know some of these topics we've covered on the show, but we're going to review through some of them because not everybody has listened to every show. So I want to talk a little bit about wire fraud, because we did do a show where one of my neighbor's mothers got had wire fraud committed upon her, and most of the money went to Nigeria. It was a very large amount of money. Why in wire fraud do banks not confirm the number that it's going to? Because this is happening a lot with realtors and title companies, and why don't they have any liability? Tell me what you know.
Okay, so the liability, I can't answer that question as far as the bank. That's a bank issue that needs to get addressed at some point down the road. Now, when you talk about wire transfer, there is this distinguishing factor of whether or not it's an ACH or just a simple wire transfer. Now, these wire transfers typically will wire the funds into an account that is used as a prepaid debit card. So once the funds are wired in, they take those funds onto a prepaid debit card, and the account is closed. And there's no tracing that account. It's very difficult to trace that account, and it happens immediately.
Storm, questions?
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah,
okay.
Lori, just to give you another example, and again, I don't mention our clients' names on these calls because that's proprietary. But we have one where they do a test to see how they can breach your system so that they can commit this wire fraud or ACH fraud by looking at transferring small amounts, small denominations, like $400 initially, maybe $1,000. And then if they see that nothing's been done to stop those transfers, then they start to go to the larger transfers, $12,000, $40,000. One of our clients, $168,000.
Wow, that's frightening. I mean, you would think with technology, it seems like the bad guys are always ahead of the good guys.
Yeah, they've got more time on their hands. Obviously, they've got more time.
Yeah.
Time on. And, they rely on their ability to be stealth. That's what they rely on. But, that's not always the case either. We've done a significant number of financial fraud cases in the 11 years that we're in business. And, it just takes one slip up, and then bang, if you can get an IP address that they're operating from, you can trace that IP address back.
Okay.
And then that's where you luck out, because once you've got an IP address and you trace it back, now, yes, they can certainly bounce them from server to server, but, for the most part, if you can focus on a particular IP address and then start baiting it as well, and if they continue to use the same IP address, especially in the United States, you may be able to do something about that. But, I heard you earlier about what goes on outside the United States, and, a number of these type of financial frauds typically are happening out of South America. We're seeing a lot of that happen out of South America, like Costa Rica and places like that. Go figure. These countries aren't the most advanced, but yet you've got individuals there that are quite savvy on computer technology.
It makes me, and I said it before, it makes me not want to ever wire money. I don't think I'd ever wire money. I don't do any auto debit. I write checks out, because I want to see a picture of it from my bank showing it. I don't like to do the auto pay either. Those things make me nervous, even though they all say they're safe, they're not. Let me ask you on another topic on online retail fraud. What do you know about that? Because I am a victim of identity theft, so somebody does have my information, and I've had some weird things happen. What do you know about retail fraud?
Yeah, so here's a big scam that goes on now that we're involved in with some of our clients, where you go into a system and you order, let's just say, 40 iPads, and you put a shipping address that is not your own address to it, and it arrives at this location. So you're monitoring this location, and then once it arrives, the person receiving it has no clue who this belongs to, but then you show up on the doorstep and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, they mistakenly shipped this to you when it should be mine." But they billed that individual for it because they were able to breach their system.
Oh.
So this is going on all the time, and I'm like you, I don't permanently put in any debit card information when and if I order something online. So you know how they want to keep it resident sometimes.
Yes.
I just won't do that. That's
well, you can
one
sign it as yeah, you can sign in as a guest on some of them, but I'm very nervous if I'm not familiar. I'm always looking at the URL to see who it's from. If I have any question, then I just call the company and place the order online that way, rather than call and have somebody, because look how many times things get breached, for information like Equifax, for example. So, that's one of the reasons I'm nervous about it. Let me just see here. I think we're going to go to a short break. We're going to come back. We got some more topics to cover. Yep, so stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Right.
There is a very high likelihood your mortgage contains an extensive error. At Mortgage Fraud Examiners, we know just how costly a missed opportunity can be. For almost 40 years, we have consulted, retained, and referred to by attorneys, lawyers, trial practitioners throughout the nation. Put another way, we are the trusted source for litigation support. A foreclosure is basically an allegation the homeowner breached the contract by failing to make timely payments. The contract is clear. The borrower promised they would make timely payments, and if they didn't, the lender could take the property. The only way to overcome the homeowner's breach is to show the lender breached first, identify errors that would void the contract, identify regulatory violations, identify appraisal fraud and other fraudulent contact, and the only way to find these wrongs is to thoroughly examine the whole mortgage transaction. This meticulous examination of your mortgage transaction and appraisal can identify legal defects that would make your mortgage unenforceable and entitle you to compensation or even free title to your property. Call us at 844-920-7200. Mortgage Fraud Examiners, that's 844-920-7200. 844-920-7200.
Okie doke. We're back on Fraudsters Radio at AM FM 24/7 radio. The call-in number is area code 646-668-8512. And we have our special guest, Robert Aromando. Did I get it right this time?
You got it right. You got it right.
Okay.
Yay, Storm.
Thank you. From the K Street Group, LLC. Bob, got a question for you. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm very familiar with K Street. How did you come up with the name of the K Street Group?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because K Street is where all the lobbyists are now, right?
Right.
But years back, many, many years back, a majority of the federal law enforcement agencies were in nondescript buildings all the way down on K Street.
Right.
And so, but now they're all in these beautiful Department of Justice buildings and, DHS buildings and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I got it. And I got a good buddy of mine that lives down there who's a former Secretary of State to Colin Powell, who kind of made the suggestion about making it, the brand is very well recognized now, K Street Group, but people think more of it or think we're from Washington, D.C., or we have ties down in Washington, D.C., but our office is up in New Jersey.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because there are other K Street groups.
Right, but not investigative firms, though.
Right, yeah. But, yeah,
right, well,
I was just looking for the tie-in.
Go ahead.
No, I was just looking for the tie-in. He explained it.
Okay, that's all right. We were talking about card fraud, credit card fraud. They change it from the magnetic swipe to the chip. Does any of that really mean anything anymore, or because that's another type of fraud? I'm reading that it's over $31 billion a year in card fraud.
Yeah, I mean, card fraud, adding those chips did not make it any more difficult for the bad guys to breach those systems. If anything, it may have been easier because it may be easier for them to read the algorithms, from the chips. But it certainly has not done any advantage. I mean, just the other day, Lori, I have Bank of America for my debit card, and I went to use my debit card to get some money, and it wouldn't work. And so I was not in a position to make any phone calls at that point. A day later, I get an email that says that Bank of America believes that I may have been on a list. I may have used a vendor whose data was breached, and so they're issuing a new debit card to me. But
gotcha.
But I had no forewarning.
Yeah.
About whether or not I was able to use my debit card.
So they just froze it in advance. They froze it in advance to reduce their risk and not tell you, which was inconvenient.
Well, exactly.
What can,
go ahead.
Yeah. What can people do in situations like this?
Are you saying where they shut your credit card off or debit card off and you're stuck? Well,
and you're stuck.
The best thing to do is to call the credit card company or the debit card company or the bank. That's the best thing that you can do, and do that immediately because depending on who it is, like Amex, for example, they'll remedy that situation immediately for you. I've seen situations where they'll have a messenger bring over a new Amex card for you right away.
Gotcha. I mean, years ago, if you had a problem with a credit card, they'd send you one the next day overnight. Now they call, you have a problem with a credit card, it's going to be 7 to 10 days. I go, 7 to 10 days? I've got things I need it now. I've got things that are attached to it.
But they're taking that time to verify that you're the right requester of that card being replaced, and it's going to the right person. So it's not that there's a further administrative log jam up to get these out. It's just that now the banks, the financial institutions, are taking some more precautions when they are reissuing a debit card or a credit card, especially if you say to them, no, that's not my address, I just moved.
It's a shame they can't do what some of the banks do. Like if I go online on my computer, I have apps for different banks that I have. And now they want your fingerprint in order to be able to, go in and see your account or make deposits, etc. I'm wondering, why can't they do the same thing for most people have smartphones. Why can't they operate it so that it's using your fingerprint when you go up? Like when you go through, for example, Lowe's or Home Depot,
Right.
and they could scan the thing. Why can't they come up with something that would be significant to that person, right? Or you know what I'm saying? They're not going to do
Sure.
a retinal scan, but they could certainly do a fingerprint.
No, I agree, and that technology does exist. I will tell you that there is a company, again, I'm not going to mention a name, that we're in discussions with, that is got some technology whereby your cardiac profile is a positive identification method, right? Because everybody's cardiac profile is unique. Mine and yours are not
Right.
identical or the same in any fashion. And this company developed the system to go on a watch, a band that you would put around your wrist. So that
Okay.
would be the ultimate positive identification system, would be through your cardiac pattern.
Gotcha. I don't know. They could just microchip me.
Well, but I mean, it's some cool
Yeah.
technology. I'll tell you that. I mean, there's no way you're getting around that. That's just not happening.
Okay. Well, if it can work, that would be great. It's just things need to come out faster than they do. Now, one of the
Yeah.
other things I want to talk about too was first-party fraud to the tune of $17 billion, which is when
Right.
customers open up accounts or loans and they don't intend on repaying them, or they commit devious transactions to steal from the bank. That's first-party fraud, and I
Right.
had never known what it was called until I read this little article on it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I sit here and I go, who? Well, I don't want to say who thinks like that. Obviously, people with no moral conscience think like that. I'm guessing it's a common thing because the article talks about $17 billion, and the article is from 2016, so I'm sure now it's even bigger. Explain to me how it exactly works. It's mind-boggling.
Sure. So again, you got to remember that different forms of financial fraud occur just about every 15 seconds. You have to remember that. It's just so a part of our life, your life, that just think about that. Every 15 seconds, there's some act of financial fraud taking place. So if you look at this first-party fraud, and we worked on a major case for a bank as well, too. They had an individual that took out a loan for about $9 million to buy a wooden vessel it made in Italy, a recreational vessel. And I mean, this
Okay.
vessel was gorgeous. It was about, I think it was a 60-footer, I think, something like that. And he got the funds from them, and it was against a home that he didn't own. And so the bank, when they were starting to look for their payments, they couldn't locate this individual. They couldn't locate the boat as well. And so they hired us to try to find the individual. And, one thing I will say is that you can never really get off the grid. There's always some mechanism by which we can locate you, whether it be a social, there's always a method. And we worked on this case for about 7 months, and we located the guy. The guy was in Jersey City. And, coincidentally, he had the boat harbored right there in Jersey City at Newport Marina.
Okay.
So we were able to locate it. So we had to put some undercover guys in because he was trying to sell the boat now.
Oh.
So that, absolutely. He was trying to sell it so that he got the 9 or 10 million, however the amount was. And we set up a dummy buy because, he put it through a broker, and we put up a dummy individual that was a high net worth to try to buy the boat and test it, out there and all that stuff. Once we had all of that evidence, we were able to get the court order to take possession of the boat, which we did. And this individual's wife and himself were arrested because of this type of first-party fraud. But it goes on everywhere because it is fairly simple. What I say by that is, sometimes they're not looking for much money, and, they'll open an account, a credit card account, just as an example. No intention of paying it back, but on that account, they can take up to $500 out as a cash advance.
Right.
And they'll do it. They'll take out the $500 cash advance, and that's the last they'll use that card. And they'll just keep doing it and keep doing it.
Until somebody tries to catch them.
Correct. Yeah, that's just it.
Yeah.
Now, the only ones, because I did hear you earlier about, why aren't the banks doing anything about this, or the financial institutions or the government? And we do work with government agencies on these fraud cases. We work with the Postal Inspectors, unit there. We work with ATF, FBI. I mean, we've worked with just about all of those ABCs, And it's tough to find an agent in any of those organizations that'll take a case and run with it like this. It's almost like you have to know someone or get introduced to an agent in the bureau or the agency and entice them to take the case.
You're talking with the big agencies, because I found in general, excuse me, that a lot of times big agencies don't, like the FBI, for example. I've turned information over to FBI or to other agencies. They don't do anything with it. You can give them all the information you want, and their response pretty much is, and we've had them on our show also, is
right.
They don't have enough people to follow up with whatever the crime is. To me, though, that's sort of an excuse, because what about the person that lost all the money? It could be a huge crime. So you can't really say.
You're right. You're right. And what we typically will recommend, depending on the money involved in the crime, okay? And if
right.
it's, $12,000 or $20,000, what we will typically recommend to the client is, put it through your local county prosecutor's office. They love those cases.
Well,
they
you're
jump on those right away.
Yeah, now you're talking criminal cases, correct?
Yes, criminal fraud cases.
All right, let me give you the exception, the one exception to the rule. Do you remember?
Sure.
I'm from Jersey, like you. Do you remember what state I'm in?
Right now?
Yeah. Yep.
I think. Let me just think about that. Massachusetts?
Nope. I am in Florida, the only state where criminal offenders get charged because for example, and I have a friend who I can think of a couple people I know involved who had criminal things done against them. Something here that I know, another criminal case, and the sheriff's department will say, we're going to pass it off as a civil case. They won't pursue criminal cases. They don't want to pursue criminal cases in Florida. So I would say don't move to Florida if you're listening to the show, because that's what the difference is. I tell Storm, and I know he's listening, but if you're in New Jersey, they're going to do something about it. Down here, Bob, nope, not a thing. No one cares. Agencies don't care. None of the organizations I've contacted when I found that information cares, and that's the part that I find disturbing.
Well, again, I hate to say it, but, most of the time it's important to get a name of somebody that, you can get referred to in that particular agency. And then, I also mentioned the U.S. Postal Service investigators unit. I mean, that's a pretty large entity. And if the fraud has anything to do with mail, whether they were mailing you something or you mailed something, they will take those cases hands down. Hands down, they'll take.
Well, let's see. Identity fraud, that happens. We're going to go to commercial break in a minute. That one happens, a lot. I mean, like I said, I'm a victim of identity theft, in that some people have used my information. But what you have to do in cases like that, pretty much, is you have to, obviously file a police report. It depends on the amount of what they've taken that you could go to the FBI or not. But you've got to lock down your credit, do an identity theft affidavit, and then put credit freezes or do LifeLock on it to kind of save you. Like I said, I've had bizarre things happen over the years, and it's a good thing I keep really good records because sometimes I don't know. But we come back from the commercial break. Let's talk a little bit about check fraud, because I am one of the people that still write checks. So let's do a quick break, and we will be right back. Stay with us.
Yep.
Okay.
Consumers, do you have bad credit? Can't purchase a house or car? Paying too much in interest on your credit cards and loans? Scammed by credit repair companies? There is hope. You can get back on track and do it the right way. Call Credit Education Consultants today at 813-500-6064. That's 813-500-6064. Or go to crediteducationconsultants.com now and get the help you need. Don't delay. Call today. Mortgage reps and realtor inquiries are also welcomed.
Okay, we're back on Fraudsters Radio, AM, FM, 24/7 radio. The call-in number is area code 646-668-8512. And we have our special guest, Robert Aromando from the K Street Group, not in Washington, D.C., but in Lebanon, New Jersey.
There you go.
You had a question, Laurie, regarding check fraud.
Right. I'm curious about check fraud because first off, I'm probably one of the few people that write a restrictive endorsement on every single check that I write, which typically is for deposit only to whatever the company is on the back of the check. I do that as a protection mechanism because I know that I've seen TV shows where postal employees on hidden camera opening up envelopes and stealing checks at Christmas time. But if it's endorsed as deposit only, that check isn't either it's not going to be cashed at all or they're going to throw it out. So what do you know about check fraud? Because a lot of people think, hey, checks are the old way. I like it, like I said, because for my accountant, she can see all the checks I've written, and it makes it easy to itemize things. I would rather do that than do online banking because I feel that, working as a credit consultant, I hear stories from clients all the time how they went to make, they have something set up for auto pay or auto debit, and then that company either changes their accounting or they get bought out by another company, and guess what? They didn't let the client know, and now all those deposits are not going through, which of course then affects their credit, with late pays and kills their credit. And so that's why one of the reasons I don't like auto pay. Auto debit I don't like because I've seen situations from clients where instead of, if it's a $70 charge and they make a typo and they make it a $700 or a $7,000 charge, it wipes out all the cash in the account and causes big problems for that client. So, but you can tell us what you know about check fraud and maybe what people, is what I'm doing a good thing to protect myself?
Sure, absolutely. And again, a lot of this does tie into identity fraud, which before the break you had mentioned. I just want to give you a little tidbit on that for a second. We'll jump into this because we actually were a victim of check fraud. So I can speak firsthand and secondhand on it. But, when it comes down to any of this identity fraud, check fraud, it's all about Social Security numbers is what it's all about. We have high net worth individuals that we monitor their Social Security numbers on a weekly basis to see if they show up attached to some other name. So let's park that for a second. On the check fraud now, so if we go back to check fraud, and I'm just laughing about it because the people that tried to commit check fraud on us didn't realize what kind of company we were when they were trying to do it. Right. So basically what they do now, because you can take photographs of your checks for deposits, if a check is issued, and even if it's a fraudulent check, because they can copy these things so well, they can pull your logo off the internet. They take the picture. It gets automatically deposited, so the funds are available the next day. They'll withdraw those funds because it's a debit card fund type of an account that they have set up. And then they'll take the same check and go to a check cashing place and cash it. So they're getting twice the amount at it. And this goes on more often than you can imagine. So for us, we just dug our boots in and said, okay, let's find out who's doing this stuff. Because it had to start with one of our checks, whether it was a payroll check or some, in order to get some account information and all that kind of good stuff. And so, we tracked it right down to the specific ATM that this person went to make this deposit and the withdrawal, because we had the cooperation, believe it or not, of our local police department in New Jersey because they were all too happy to take the case with us, and we packaged some of the evidence so nicely for them that it made sense for them to take it. And it turned out that we had a very large job going on in New York where one of those individuals took a picture of his check and passed it on to somebody else, and that's how it all started. But there were 7 people that wound up getting arrested under a federal charge for this.
I can't believe, sorry, I got a bad cough today. I can't believe that people are still so stupid that they don't think that they're going to get caught. Now, I know a lot of people don't get caught, but a lot of people, so why would you even, I guess my way of thinking is so opposite, and your way of thinking is so opposite of what these people do, that I just wonder, what's their mentality that they could just take money from anybody that they didn't earn? I don't know. It's just, I find it a disturbing factor that people even think that way.
Well, but that's the criminal mind, though, right? I mean, and you see it on every scale. So, Bernie Madoff has another one. So there's one, but, you're talking billions there. And then you've got this other sector of the criminal universe, that focuses on, the elderly or the very easy to fraud type of situations where they can get 1,000 here, 2,000 there, 3,000 there, and it just keeps going. And what we typically recommend to our clients is to have multiple checking accounts so that, there's only one account that you pay your bills in, and that balance on that account is very low. It's when you do your bills that you transfer the money over to pay them. I mean, we do that as a corporation. We have 4 different checking accounts. We have a tax account, we have a general operating fund, we have a payroll account, and then a miscellaneous. And then we've got a money market, which is where we put the bulk of our financials.
Right. Believe it or not, I do the same thing. Once you're a victim of identity theft, you worry that if someone hits one of your bank accounts, they get all your money. So if you have more bank accounts than one, chances are less that they'll get all the money out, because people don't realize it's not like credit. Once they take the cash, now you got to deal with that bank, and it could take, depending on the bank, it could take weeks or months sometimes, I hear, to even get that money back. And what do you do? What do you do meantime? Now, I want to kind of skip over, because we don't have too much time left, and I want you to give some tips at the end. Explain. This one I'm not sure I understand, but what is account takeover? It says account takeover is being driven by huge credentialing breaches at Yahoo and LinkedIn. Since most customers use the same credentials on all of their online sites, fraudsters have been able to use brute force attacks so they can take over their online banking accounts. So does that mean that they're getting the information for passwords from sites like LinkedIn and Yahoo's breaches, and then they can kind of figure out how to use that onto banking that they're using? Is that what that is?
Right. That's exactly what occurs, right? So if you go back and you look at all the data breaches that have occurred, with Marriott Starwood in 2018 with 500 million records, Facebook had 50 million records, T-Mobile had 2 million records, Saks Fifth Avenue, 5 million, when Equifax got breached. Oh, my God. So yes, you can actually, and we've done this for clients too, we have a platform that we utilize that's proprietary, and we can do deep and dark web searches to see if their credit card information or their personal identifiable information is winding up in those areas where they're being sold, where that information is being sold. And that's how it happens. Somebody, some entity, some bad actor will go into that particular part of the dark web or the deep web, and they'll buy a bunch of credit information. It could be yours, it could be mine, password, and all that stuff. That's where it is.
So I'm going to ask you another kind of bizarre question. We all hear what the dark web is. How do you get to the dark web? Can a regular person get to the dark web to see what it is?
Yes, you can. You need a browser called the Tor browser, Tors, which you can download. I would not recommend a layperson do this, because you could find yourself in areas where you don't want to be in there. But that will certainly get you in there. That will and that dark and deep web is even, if you can imagine this universe, it's even bigger than the typical web you and I know of, like Google search and all of that.
Right.
The only difference, it's unrefined information, and it's information that could be held, hidden in a very covert manner. But, you can sniff it out. It's just a matter of, having the right people do the job for you. But that's
I don't know.
Bob, I was going to say, Bob, why don't we spend the last few minutes having you tell us how to contact you, tell us all the things that you do, what you do for a living, and give you an opportunity for a little mini commercial. So go.
Sure, I appreciate it. Again, thank you, first of all. And the name of the company is the K Street Group. We're located in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. Our telephone number is 908-200-7344. You can go visit our website, which would be www.kstreetgroupsecurity.com. And we deal in a world where deception is very dominant, where fraud occurs quite often. We're protecting some of the most wealthiest individuals in the country, not just their personal protection, but also their financial protection as well, too. And, Jason, we're celebrating our 11th year in business.
Now, if who's the type of individual that would want to use your services? Who would need you, and what could you do for them? Is it just anybody on the street, or do you just work with high finance individuals, or can just Joe Lunchbox, can he call you and there's services you can provide for him?
Well, okay, it's a good question. So I think I may have said earlier, we try to select the clients we want to do business with. And for the most part, we will not do, walk-in business, I call it, or non-commercial business. The only time we will do that is for one of our corporate clients. One of their, executive committee members is having a personal problem. We'll get involved in that. So our work is more focused toward the, Fortune 500 companies, the mid to large-size business entities, corporate entities, and then just high net worth individuals that are concerned about kidnapping, extortion, and other fraud type of issues. But the average person, that it's tough because our billing for it could be more than what they've lost.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it just and we will, if we get those calls. I do entertain the phone call because we try to help people no matter what. And if somebody does call me out of the blue and say, hey, my personal, I'll refer them to a law enforcement agency with a name sometimes, just so they can get some satisfaction and see if one of those agencies can help them. Because, like I said, we'd have to bill them much more than they may have lost.
So in other words, the education is free, but if they want you to work, they're going to have to pay the tab.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like anything else, right? Attorneys and everything else, there's always an hourly rate got to be charged, and that's why our corporate clients, when they have a fraud committed against them, they're in it for the long haul, so they don't mind that they've got to pay us over a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week period to investigate this fraud issue because they can't let it happen again.
Right, Storm. It's like what you and I do. I mean, if people can't afford our services, I know you and I both try to point people in the right direction using agencies, that they can contact, and especially if you have a name of somebody, sometimes that's even better. Down in Florida, if I send somebody to the police department with a copy of their credit report, and I say circle all the things that are definitely not yours and bring it, and get I just need you to get a police report number, not the actual report. It's like pulling teeth to get any of the police departments down here to do that. They don't want to be involved in that, So I don't know. It's no one wants to be involved, but it's kind of tough. But it was a good show, Bob. I know we're going to have you back again soon. So I want to thank you for joining us. And Storm, thanks for being here. You let me do most of the talking today.
Yes, even though you were coughing up.
Yep. I'm coughing up today. I'm living on my cough drop, so I'm going to try and do the closing here in one breath. Here we go. Thanks for joining us today on Fraudsters Radio. Please join us again next week from Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time live. Remember, we do want to hear your stories, and you can contact us through the Fraudsters Radio Facebook page. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Great show.
All righty. My pleasure.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.